Welcome to the Mockingcast, the podcast of Mockingbird Ministries. I'm David Zoll, your host, and in a few moments, I'll be joined by my co-hosts, Sarah Condon and RJ Heyman. We come to you every other week to discuss a few of the places where we currently see grace and its absence playing out in unexpected and compelling ways. We're glad to have you with us.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. God.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year to our Mockingcast listeners, but Happy New Year, especially to the two of you. I know we've texted back and forth a little bit, but let's hear it. How's your breaks? What's the new year like so far?
We had an awesome break. It was really good. Got to see a ton of family. That was so nice. Got to spend a lot of time with our dear friends. We did New Year's Eve with our best friends and their three boys. And we have hung out with these people since our kids were babies, like since we didn't have an Annie. And they've got three boys now who are like adult sized. And, you know, we've got two kids. And I mean, honestly, our favorite thing to do is to vacation together and go to the smallest Episcopal church we can find. So we can just like increase their ASA by double. We love to do that in the summer. But what we did this time is we got a reservation at the nicest restaurant in Oxford, which is a nice restaurant, and just hauled our whole crew in for New Year's Eve. And it's one of those memories that I can't believe I get to treasure for forever. It was so wonderful. So the only thing that was unexpected was I was like, God, this is going to be expensive. But like, you know, like kids will order a thing that's probably $20. We'll order a thing. There'll be some drinks. It can't be that bad. We can hear you guys. It's a prefix menu. It's $125 a head. I was like, so we're not getting a new couch this year, guys.
Luckily, kids don't drink.
I know that is true. Let me tell you what else they don't do. Eat the raw oysters on the prefix menu that you paid for.
Marshall eats those. Marshall will eat those.
Good for Marshall.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was awesome.
RJ.
We had a great break also. Christmas Eve was lovely. Christmas Day was lovely. On Boxing Day, my wife and I had our annual tradition of just staying in our pajamas and watching cheesy rom-coms all day, which was really fun. And then Jonathan Adams and his family came in for about 4 days. So we had 10 people in the house, which is wild and crazy. And New Year's Eve, my wife had bought some fireworks at Target, but they weren't enough. So our older boys and Jonathan's kids went on an odyssey and ended up at a Walmart where they bought many, many more fireworks because it's Florida and set them off in our driveway, which was amazing. And then they all left and could keep my wife from being too depressed. We got in the car, she and Marshall and me, and we drove up to North Carolina to go skiing for like 3 days because Marshall had never been on skis before. And that was really, really great, actually. We had never really been on a trip, just the three of us, and we took the dogs, and it was really bonding. And he, of course, did great on the mountain because he's fearless and pretty athletic. And it was just a really nice way to end our time. And then, you know, now coming back and kind of excited for the new year, but also still digging out a little bit, you know. I guess Sarah, so excited for you to come to Holy Trinity West Palm Beach on Sunday, January 21st.
Yeah.
So if you're in our area on Sunday the 21st, come hear Sarah preach. How about you, Dave?
I wish I could be there. In fact, you know where I'll be? I'll be at the Sundance Film Festival.
Ooh.
What?
Yeah. You guys know the Wind Rider studio that we showed a film from in New York this past year, the Beneath the Ink thing?
Yeah.
They invited, they invited me and my wife and Megan Ritchie, who works for Mockingbird, and we'll get to go out there. And, you know, it all kind of falls together at the last minute. So I believe I get to moderate a few things, but
wow.
We'll see. I don't know.
Dave.
It's so fun. I went to that a couple years in college. It was so fun. Are you going to shred? Are you going to shred, DZ? Are you going to shred?
I don't know if we have enough time to shred. That is what RJ's description of my incredible snowboarding skills. But that this is the terminology of former youth ministers who actually did it
shred
together.
train.
The shred train. Shout out Taylor Foreign. I know you're listening. So no, it was fantastic. My parents came. They're only here for a few days, but we stayed put. And we had the moment that I think a lot of parents have had. And RJ, maybe you haven't had this in a while. And Sarah, I don't know if you're there yet, but we had the moment where we slept in for 3 straight days and realized, oh my goodness, this hasn't happened since we had our first child. Like our 7-year-old can get up and get himself a cereal, and the dog gets walked, and this moment that it kind of creeps up on you, but for years you think it's never going to come, and you worry that you can't sleep in ever again.
That was a long haul.
Divine deliverance.
I know. Since 2010, we haven't had that kind of. You get time to sleep when for me it's when my wife is like taking them or something else, or you're out of town. But it was very funny reporting that to my younger colleagues here, and they just look at you with disdain because when will that day ever come? And it comes. It came like a thief in the night.
Like a thief in the night.
Like the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Well, we've got some fun things to talk about today, and we're going to start with why everyone is obsessed with the kid who beat Tetris. Now, I'm not sure if you guys are Tetris players. I played Tetris on a Game Boy, and my kids have one of those little Tetris sort of like mock arcade games, and for years Tetris there was a movie I think made about it.
I watched it like Netflix or Apple TV or something. Apple Plus. Yeah, it was good. It was fun.
It's sort of a fun thing, and I think a lot of people do have experiences of this game. I know it's also like it's a calming thing. It's like the pre-Candy Crush, Angry Birds, Minesweeper type of. But there's a 13. I'll read this is from Wired magazine. Angela Watercutter wrote this. She writes, a 13-year-old kid has seemingly beat Tetris. Long believed impossible or a myth, the magical feat took place on December 21st and apparently shocked even the player. Willis Gibson, he's 13. He reached level 157 and launched the heretofore unseen kill screen, where the game crashes and there's nothing left to play. Oh my God, Willis says repeatedly in a video he posted of his success this week. I'm going to pass out. Now, Gibson's story, she says that normally this would be kind of a minor story, like kind of a curio, but this story has taken off. It got covered on CNN, NPR, and the New York Times. Interest in the game, now 4 decades old, Watercutter writes, isn't, I believe, what's driving the fascination with Gibson's victory. I think it's a deep desire for some kind of wonder. For a lot of people, 2023 was awful. There's not much good news to latch on to these days. Folks hoping to return to work with a new year, new me vitality are finding themselves coming up short. Dry January is trending, but most of the posts are less than enthusiastic. Example, instead of Dry January, I'm doing Why January. It's where every day I stand in the middle of the street and scream, why, God, why? Seeing that a kid in Oklahoma defeated the programming of a game that has caused countless people joy and frustration feels like a balm. She goes on to say, Gibson completed his legendary run in under 40 minutes. About 38 minutes into it, he says exasperatedly, please crash, please crash. It almost feels like the motto of the past year. While no one wants things to fall apart, there's an overwhelming sense that things are tumbling too fast, and it would be a relief if they stopped. Not because the worst outcome had happened, but because the struggle was over. Well, by crashing Tetris, Gibson essentially beat its coding. For the past 12 months, as artificial intelligence has infiltrated creativity and threatened jobs, the rise of the machines has never felt more real. Watching one 13-year-old with an NES controller and a lot of determination beat a computer is a win for everyone. And then, very touchingly, you find out that Willis dedicated his win to his late father, who died last month.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Got one other thing. He's 13.
He needed this. Holy
do you know about 13-year-old boys, Sarah?
Yes, I do.
I love this idea that we sort of all needed a win, and it kind of comes at the right time. And this kid who's just lost his dad and beating the machines, the whole thing strikes me as a nice little nugget of joy, a little Christmas gift, New Year's gift. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Okay, well, I don't feel that way. I mean, 2024 is going to be awful too. I
Come on. We're only a few days in. Come on, let's hold out hope. Maybe it'll be a lot better.
Trust me, mine has already had drama.
You're coming to Holy Trinity. How bad could it be?
Okay. Kids' dads are going to die in 2024. Life is going to be awful in its own way in 2024. Okay. So I want to say all that.
Praise God for you, Sarah.
I hate this shit when people are like, oh, this last year was so bad. It's like, when have we ever been like, damn, 2006 was awesome? Like, nobody said that in 2007. Everybody in 2007 was like, 2006 was awful. Like, it's not gonna be different this year. But here's the thing. Wonder is always there, and it is a huge gift, and it is a relief from the enormity of tragedy and sadness and desperation and despair that we face regularly in our lives and that we see all over the world. And so thank God for wonder, I think, is the takeaway for me, but not like, oh, this is like last year was so bad. I mean, that kid's year was terrible. This year for that kid who lost his dad, it's going to be really bad. Like, so I don't know. I get so frustrated with the New Year's thing of like, last year was really bad. This year, I'm like, shut up. It's going to be hard. Okay. But find some meaning in your life. Try to remember that Jesus is going to hunt your ass down no matter how bad your year is, and love you profoundly. I saw a thing. I was driving past a Methodist church the other day, and churches have those signs out, right, that they change every week. And usually they're horribly legalistic, right? Or they're like horribly legalistic, like reading your Bible, eating an apple or something. Or they're like super progressively political, like today is the day you save the world or whatever. And this one said, if God had a refrigerator, your picture would be on it.
Aww.
And I was like, man, that's it.
That's
so
good.
like that's wonder. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where I am with this.
Ladies and gentlemen, I tried. What can I say? I did my best to begin
Sarah's
the year on an
reminding
upbeat
me.
note.
Remember a Groundhog Day? You want a prediction, sweetheart? I'll give you a prediction. It's going to be cold. It's going to be dark. And it's going to last you the rest of your life.
Yes.
But these little nuggets of wonder are, I think, I would say it again. I think it's a nice. I didn't know that I needed the little bit of a 13-year-old winning Tetris.
They are the thing that keeps us afloat. Yes.
And I could coming back, Sarah, to the subject we talked about a few episodes ago about that book about awe, and sort of any kind of way that you can get in touch with awe, and whether that be a big idea, or whether that be nature, whether that be some sort of great accomplishment, or whether that be collective effervescence, or of course worship. All these things sort of coalesce in church, as we mentioned. But the wonder is not just a cheesy thing. It really is kind of the lifeblood of the human race. And
it's a very serious. I think wonder is the most serious thing. I do. I think things like wonder and humor and connection are I think those are the most serious things.
It feels to me like discovering there's a room in your house that you didn't know was there before, or like an island, like suddenly it's like, how, first of all, how is this possible? Because I'm thinking back to my own Tetris days, and I swear, I think I got up into like the 120s at the high, and I wasn't that far away. Like, really? Really? I was only 20 to 30 lines away from crack. That's crazy. It just feels sort of unbelievably wonderful. Like if Tetris can be beaten, suddenly anything's possible.
Yeah.
Like what else do we not know about? What else are we just going to discover that sort of feels like, because of course Tetris just feels like it'll go on forever and just get harder and faster. But then no, it there's an end to it. It can be beaten. What a wonderful thing. I haven't watched the video. I briefly saw the article. But now I got to go watch it.
I think, at least my faith tells me, there's always hope. Like this, you never close the door on hope, because you can't close the door on God.
Yeah.
Though
life always surprises you.
There is an interesting sort of a Condon-esque addendum to this. The New York Times ran an article on it, and of course they interviewed some other players, and they said, it's never been done by a human before, said Vince Clementi, the president of the Classic Tetris World Championship. There's such a thing. It's basically something that everyone thought was impossible until a couple of years ago. Awesome, right? Well, Gibson's achievement will unlock new frontiers for Tetris players to explore, said another championship player. Now that it's been done, there's kind of a new phase or a new challenge. When we all found out this past year that, the crash is possible, you could do it at this level, then people started racing to be the first to do it. But now there's a whole new challenge, which is basically, instead of going through the crash, how long can you go beyond the crash? So we will figure out a new way to make sure that
to keep score.
To keep score, that the end is, the goalposts do need to be moved back just a little bit further. And thank you very much. Like
we can do awful all on our own.
Well, speaking of which, this is a major editorial. Beginning of the year always brings these large scale, kind of taking the temperature of the culture and the society at large. And this was a
State of the Union.
This was a State of the Union from Karen Heller in the Washington Post. And she wrote this. I think I can certainly, attest to it, although the Tetris score was a little bit different. She says, fun is dead. Fun is dead. Sometime in recent history, possibly around 2004, Americans forgot to have fun. True fun. As though they'd misplaced it like a sock. Instead, fun evolved into work, often emphatic, exhausting, scheduled, pigeonholed, hyped, forced, and performative. Right now, there are podcasts on happiness, a global study on joy, David Byrne from the Talking Heads offering reasons to be cheerful, workshops on staging a funtervention. There's fun coaches now. Two things are abundantly clear. Fun is in serious trouble, and we are in desperate need of joy. Consider things that were long fun, but now overwhelm, exhaust, and annoy. She begins by talking about weddings. Weddings have morphed into multi-stage stress extravaganzas while doubling as express paths to insolvency. Destination proposals for the whole family, destination bachelorette and bachelor blowouts, destination weddings in remote barns with limited lodging, something called a buddymoon, bring the gang, and planners to help facilitate the same custom cocktailsiness of it all. Weddings.
Wait, people are taking other people on their honeymoons?
I'm there too, RJ.
Wait,
I'm
what?
there
Is
too.
that what a buddymoon is? You take your friends on your honeymoon?
Yeah, this does. I'm not sure how real that is, but it does sound like a thing. She says that weddings have become many things.
That might go hand in hand with the sex crisis, right?
I was like, hello.
All right. Weddings have become many things, but fun is not one of them. Then she also talks about the beach. The beach is no longer a day at one, an oasis of rest and relaxation. Vacationers feel the need to plant a chair, make that 8 at sunrise before transporting 220 pounds of stuff in a Buick-sized beach wagon, which is also a thing that used to not exist when a bucket, a book, and a towel were enough. And still, most people stare at their phones instead of the water. And I have seen that. I got to say, I have seen that. For eons, she also talks about, baby announcements, stuff like that, and how these things have become kind of these major productions, and they don't seem to be quite as fun. For eons, early adulthood was considered an age of peak fun. Now, according to several studies, it's a protracted state of anxiety and depression. Alyssa Alvarez, a social media marketing manager who's 27, she wrote, I feel like I should be having more fun than I'm actually having. There are expectations of what I want people to believe my life is like rather than what my life is actually like. Well, because there's now a coach for everything, Alvarez has hired a party coach, Evan Cudworth. She took his $497 course this fall on how to pursue intentional fun. Cudworth meets with students bi-weekly, assigns podcasts, asks them to journal, and teaches them how to regulate their impulses and explore new outlets for fun. Cudworth, tellingly, is a former college prep coach. It ends with a
glutton for punishment.
Catherine Price is the author of The Power of Fun: How to Feel Alive Again. She defines true fun as a confluence of connection, other people or nature, playfulness, aka lightheartedness, freedom, and flow, being fully engaged, present, which is not as challenging as it sounds. You can have fun in any context. Playfulness is about an attitude, she says. There's obviously something a little disturbing about that society that needs fun coaches, I think.
I'll say.
And there's also editorials. Sam wrote about it on Mockingbird about this says the internet is no longer fun. Again, I don't know if the internet's ever been fun. But I think there's something to the performancism of stuff that was previously completely present
So
tense.
simple.
You know?
Yeah.
And then you had to capture, everything has to be pictured, all this stuff.
I read an article recently. The average bachelorette party cost $20,000 in total.
What?
I mean, that's how much my wedding cost. Like, it's just like, that's why. I mean, that's wild to me. Like, that people are putting this much money into something that they're, generally speaking, coming home like complaining and miserable about. And I think about how the fun gets sucked out of these events for the people that they are meant for, right? For the people who are like hosting their own birthday party or hosting their own wedding or hosting their own sort of baby announcement thing, just like the stress of the perfectionism of the moment. It must just, I mean, I shouldn't say much. I know from personal experience, it just pulls the fun right out of it. I keep thinking about Epiphany because, we're at this new church. And so everything we experience here is brand new for us. And everybody's been like, oh man, Epiphany is like, I think they call it the biggest party of the year or something here. And I was like, what are they going to do? I mean, this is like, St. Bees it's a weird church. Like, it is. Like, I walk into stuff regularly and I'm like, whoa, okay, this is like, I think the best description of it is like they take it very seriously, like the meaning of it very seriously, but like they gonna have fun too. And so like I walked in to this gym packed with people.
Packed. I saw the pictures. I was like, what?
Crazy.
What are you guys doing? Epiphany?
And here's what we did. Like they were doing like, there was 3 adults in like costumes, which is like immediate fun. Like they are being silly and they've got a script about being the 3 kings. And then our music director gets up and literally just leads us in like we 3 kings. Like, but he breaks the room up into sections. So it's like a competition for whoever can sing the loudest. I mean, there's barbecue. How does that get more fun? And then at the end, they were like, everybody go outside because everybody has real Christmas trees. Saves them, brings them to St. Bees, and they have this incredible, like, I'm talking like 30, 40 foot bonfire.
Amazing.
Those trees are also dry. They just like go up like...
It's terrifying. Like you're standing there and there are kids that have shovels that are like running in and trying to like smash the embers. And like there are kids that are finding like pieces of Christmas tree and like hurling it in as like grown men are trying to safely put the Christmas trees onto the... I mean, like it was a little bit of mayhem in a lot of ways. It was so much fun. And I think there's something about that magical combination of like community and like letting go of the perfection of things and just being present to the meaning that like feels like magic every time it happens. And I will say it is magic I keep experiencing at this church, which I'm so thankful for. But like, I'm not a fun person. I'm not good at fun.
You've made that abundantly clear.
I don't create fun well, like I remember when I took my college chaplaincy job, I literally said to my boss, I'm so worried I'm not fun, like I'm not a fun person. And to get to walk into this like fun, I just was like, I mean, I was like, is this what Epiphany is? This is incredible. So
that's beautiful, Sarah. RJ, what do you, I do consider you to be, you're the one,
RJ's so fun.
Getting more fireworks in the middle of the night. Let's talk
and
about
like, we're going to jump off a cliff.
Jumping
and like,
off
I was like a
cliffs.
Kennedy. Like, RJ's so fun,
Mr. Body Surfing.
I do like fun. It made me think of, so Dave, when you were talking, it made me think of, when you're watching like older sitcoms or like older movies and you notice that everything looks a little bit shabbier. Like the landscaping isn't as nice and the paint is a little chipped and like there's sort of things are nice but not too nice. And then you watch more recent movies or more recent sitcoms especially and like everything is perfect. Like to me the example of that is remember that show Scrubs?
Yeah.
Which I thought was when it first started, everyone was sort of like vaguely attractive, pretty down to earth. It was pretty chill. And then towards the end, like everyone looked perfect. And there's something about the ratcheting up of expectation in our culture Like I remember we were living in Houston, and at some point our front lawn was looking pretty shabby. And my older boys were like, Dad, why does our lawn look like Malcolm in the Middle? Can we please fix our lawn?
Those boys had a lot of fun in Malcolm in the Middle.
It was so great. It was
Yeah.
there's something about just the perfectionism, the performative, the ratcheting up of expectation, which just sucks all the fun out of everything. Versus being able to just let your hair down a little bit. Like, do you have to have your house look perfect every time anyone comes over?
Right.
Or can you just like let it be a little bit?
Right.
So that's one thought, and then we're talking about, I also thought about church, Sarah, like, I thought about, I think I stole this from either Aaron Zimmerman or Stu Shelby, but this little tagline that we use at Holy Trinity, which everyone loves, which is, we take Jesus seriously, but not ourselves.
Yeah.
Which I think is just lovely. And I do wonder if maybe church could be, by the grace of God, a space where people have a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
Like Christmas Eve, we had 2 services. We had a late service, but then an early service at 5:00, which was much more kid friendly. And there was just tons of kids there. I called them all up to the steps for like a homily, which was a complete disaster. There's one kid just yelling. I asked them about famous people that they knew. And one kid said Patrick Mahomes. And another kid was like, no, Joe Burrow, and just screamed Joe Burrow at me the entire time. It was pretty hilarious.
Okay, you win.
And then they won. And then we gave them all, for the first time ever, candles. Like all the kids had candles that they lit during Silent Night, and people were nervous about it, but no lives were lost. No one was caught on fire.
Right.
And it was just fun. It was chaos and it was fun.
Yeah.
And like next Wednesday, we're starting up our Wednesday night fellowship thing, which we did in the fall, which was so fun. We had like sing-alongs. We played bridge, and we're going to do a salsa dancing class next Wednesday. And a lady is gonna cook paella.
Like, I would show up for that.
Right?
You know what I mean? Like that sounds fun.
Yes, right? It sounds fun.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I struggle with this too, honestly. I'm way too obsessed with my job. I work too hard. I'm trying to create more space for fun. I do think alcohol is a thing, right? Because I think people have a drink to have fun.
Yeah.
But then the more you drink, the more, the less fun.
Yeah.
So trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
But I agree. And I do. Let me say, the last thing I want to say is, and we talked about this before, is the Alain de Botton thing about how we Americans, the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are our God-given rights. And if we're not happy all the time, that there's something wrong with us. So there is a balance, right? But I do find when you let go of the need to be happy all the time and to be perfect all the time, it creates a little bit more room for fun.
Absolutely.
So that's all I'll say.
It just makes me think of like as a mom when I have those moments where I'm like, I've got to get the kitchen clean and I've got to get laundry done. I've got to do all these things. And it's like Annie comes in and she's like obsessed with like Katy Perry fireworks right now. And she'll come in and like request it on, Alexa, and then ask me to dance with her. And like that is so much more fun. And that is so much more important than like everything being reset for the next day.
Yeah.
Well, I have a bunch of different things to say about this because I do think we could further. I don't think it's that novel of us to say fun is kind of a virtue, as though not in this work hard, play hard, which usually just connotes to sort of decadence or self-indulgence, but fun is different. Fun is what you talked about epiphany.
Silliness.
But I think, RJ, you've described, and the article describes sort of quite brilliantly the acceleration that I think is Hartmut Rosa, the German sociologist, talks about, that being the core condition of modernity, is that everything's always accelerating. We have to beat the last year. We have to beat the score. We have to get, once we've beaten the score, we have to get to the next score. And once things can be perfect, then they have to be perfect. And that has a way of squeezing out fun. And what is funny here is that Christians have never been thought of as the fun ones, because of our focus on sort of righteousness. I think righteousness is, generally speaking, a way to ruin fun. A focus on sort of doing things right. It has a way of just totally taking you out of the present moment. It creates a sort of a surveillant sense of who's having, there's I guess an old idea that the Christians are the one making sure no one is having too much fun.
Mhm.
I don't think that that's really true anymore. And I think about it as a former youth minister. I felt that our job as youth ministers was partly to talk about Jesus, but to do it in the context of fun and silliness.
Yes.
I used to have a middle school boys youth group that we met in a room in a basement, and we would do something called like paper volleyball, and it essentially involved crinkling newspapers up into balls and just throwing them at each other for like 15 minutes until someone started getting really mad. Or we'd play hide and seek. We would do these.
We had massive Nerf wars. I bought a bunch of Nerf guns and we just shoot each other with darts.
Stupid things. We had the best birthday party I've pulled off for my kids is we had one of my son's entire grade out to a huge Nerf battle in the middle of the woods. And totally. This is like a town where people get very nervous about, that looks like a gun. But you know what? Every single kid came. It was post-COVID. They were starved for fun. Everyone came. Every parent came and was like, this is fun. This is we needed this. And over Christmas, the most fun thing that we did is my mother, who is, she's good at creating opportunities for fun. But mom's listening now, and fun. She would joke that it doesn't always come naturally to her, shall we say. She's a serious person. She got my 7-year-old a game called Poop Bingo. Maybe you know about Poop Bingo. And he gets to read the animal. Everyone has a bingo card that has both animals and what their excrement looks like. And we played it with a 75-year-old and a 7-year-old, and it was a whole room full of people, and it was so fun. And it was sort of like the most memorable thing that happened. And then we played it again with the other set of grandparents a few nights later. And again, super fun. I think that's a really great thing. And I think that it's an expression of freedom.
Yeah.
It's connection. And if churches can be the reason my oldest son loves youth group, but right now he's got a basketball schedule that's not allowing him to go to youth group regularly. And it drives me crazy because you know what? Basketball for him, he loves it, but it's stressful. It's performative. It's nothing but scorekeeping. And he's hard on himself. And youth group is pies in the face and a little Bible study. And to watch the kids come alive, I'm almost about to cancel basketball season. I'm going to do everything I can to sort of balance these things, but
it's so hard, it's
important. The youth ministers of the world need to be applauded for only that. I was at another kid's house who all he wanted for Christmas was Dude Perfect games. And if anyone knows about Dude Perfect, there's a Nickelodeon show and a YouTube channel that were all former Young Life guys who were basically doing
Is that true?
Youth group.
I did not know that, but that does not surprise me.
It's nothing but silliness, and it's just like trick,
Yeah.
Shots with water cans and stuff like that.
Yes.
The whole point is
Our
that
kids
kind of
love
fun.
That.
So anyway, that's what I have to say.
I want to say one other thing, because I do want to, I feel like most people probably know this listening to us, but yes, churches can be a lot of fun. I think part of the reason that church community can be fun, though, is because we're honest about who we are and how much we need Jesus and how much we need joy. Because what struck me most about that Epiphany bonfire was that morning, the church kicked off a adult Sunday school series about basically just mental health and theology.
Mm.
And there were over 100 people there.
Wow.
So I think for me, that having that in one day at the same church was kind of mind boggling.
Oh,
totally.
Right. That we're going to be on, and people in that room raised their hand and talked about their depression or talked about their addiction. And then that night we're all together and we're singing and we're eating and we're burning Christmas trees and we're watching our kids faces light up with the reflection of a fire. I mean, it was just like that. I feel like you.
That's genuinely holistic when people talk about that, use that word, right?
Yeah. So
The whole person. RJ.
yeah.
Dave, you were also just talking about, and I want to just make something that's implicit, explicit. You said Christians have not been known for their fun, because if the whole point of your life is to achieve righteousness, that's not going to be fun.
The law is not
Right.
fun. No.
It's not. But if
Mm-mm.
if you think Christianity is achieving righteousness, it's going to destroy fun. If you think that Christianity is that God, through Jesus, has given you the gift of righteousness, which can never be taken away, and he calls you righteous and he calls you loved no matter what, even though you're not, and you're playing with house money, that's fun.
Mhm.
And it also creates the space for honesty,
Yeah.
for freedom in every sense of the word, to tell the truth, to have fun, to carry yourself a little bit more lightly, to take, and that's what it means to take Jesus seriously. To take Jesus seriously means to take him at his word that it is finished,
Mhm.
that he has sat down at the right hand of God and it's over, game over, he won, and because he won, you won. And that means you don't need to take yourself so seriously. And you can tell the truth. You don't have to achieve perfection. You don't have to beat last year. Jesus already beat it all 2,000 years ago. And you can just open up a little bit,
Yeah.
and I think that you can sense churches where that's happening.
Yeah.
People want to be there. They don't feel like they have to be there.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where I want to be. Good grief.
Yeah, the gospel. One of the fruits of the gospel. I forget if we put this in the Little Law and Gospel book. We did, but is fun, playfulness is certainly play is a fruit of the gospel, and it's one that, as given the the diagnosis of the culture here, it's one that we would do well to actually take seriously from a gospel perspective. And I do think, when I talk to college students going out into the world to find churches, I always say, if you can't find a church that explicitly preaches the grace of God, find one where there's a gracious ethos or culture.
Spirit.
And what that really translates is there's going to be some spirit of play, some spirit of freedom, and somehow, whether it's sort of almost by accident, what we're talking about here has worked its way into the DNA. And again, as Sarah says, it is in no way to say we don't get deeply serious about we're the place that talks about the heaviest stuff ever.
Yeah.
I just witnessed this ridiculous podcast, but it is also the place that allows for fun, play. This is the great category of the Holy Spirit, I think.
I think also fun is an antidote to loneliness
and to
There's
despair.
such an epidemic. There was an amazing little opinion piece that David French wrote in the New York Times recently. His wife just got diagnosed with cancer, and he talked about their church and the support they've received. But fun is the antidote to loneliness, because if you can have fun with somebody, if you can laugh with somebody, then maybe you can cry with them too. Maybe you can, it's why humor is so important in sermons, because if you open that emotional door to laughter, you're also going to open the door to catharsis, right? To tears. And I think it all goes together. So get people together, have fun with them, and then just kind of see what happens,
And this
because people are dying for it. I mean, they're literally dying.
It can cross the line, I guess, into someone shouting at you to have more fun. I'm like, that's not fun.
No.
What we're talking about is the allowance, the permission, and in fact, to view this as not only like a good thing, but a necessary thing, and
Try something silly.
Try something silly. Well, Sarah, you did talk about bonfires, so we're going to move into paganism, which I think is
Love it.
Seamless segue.
This is a pretty amazing article, appeared in the Atlantic Monthly, called "The Return of the Pagans," written by a Rabbi David Wolpe. He says, although paganism is one of those catch-all words applied to widely disparate views, the worship of natural forces, which is paganism is, generally takes two forms: the deification of nature and the deification of force. In the modern world, each ideological wing has claimed a piece of paganism as its own. On the left, there are the world worshippers who elevate nature to the summit of sanctity. On the right, you see the worship of force in the forms of wealth, political power, and tribal solidarity. In other words, the paganism of the left is a kind of pantheism. And the paganism of the right is a kind of idolatry. Hug a tree or hug a dollar bill, and the pagan in you shines through. The current worship of wealth is a pagan excrescence. I'm spending this year at Harvard, and it is not easy to find an undergraduate who isn't interested in, quote, finance. The poets want to go into finance. The history students are studying investment. Wealth is a cover for, or a means to, the ultimate object of worship in a pagan society, which is power. Then he moves into what we might call Tom Holland territory. Not Spider-Man.
Not Spider-Man.
Nietzsche criticized Judaism and Christianity for what he saw as their valorization of weakness, which he despised. The Greeks taught that the rich and powerful and beautiful were favored by the gods. Then along came Judaism, and after it Christianity, arguing that widows and orphans and the poor were beloved by God. This was Judaism's spiritual revenge, Nietzsche argued, which spread through the world on Christian wings. The Nazis, in championing blonde, blue-eyed Aryan Übermenschen, a term they took from Nietzsche, were reinvigorating a pagan ideal. He goes on to say, the worship of the body, of beauty, which is another form of power, is a pagan inheritance. The monotheistic faiths did not disdain beauty, but it was not an ideal they extolled. Not only do biblical heroes rarely merit a physical description, but even traditionally heroic attributes are portrayed as worthless if they lack a spiritual foundation. In the Bible, if someone is physically imposing, that usually signals trouble. Samson is a boor who redeems himself at the last minute. Saul stands a head above the crowd, but is an utter failure as a king. The English critic Matthew Arnold famously said that the Greeks believed in the holiness of beauty, and the Hebrews believed in the beauty of holiness. The veneration of physical beauty, the Instagramization of culture, is pagan to its roots. He keeps going. He says, the virtue that falls furthest in the pagan pantheon of traits is humility.
Humility.
In the ancient Greek epics, humility is not even reckoned a virtue. He says this is, if we don't have a God to simultaneously assure us of our centrality and of our smallness, we will exaggerate both. Rabbi Simcha Bunim, a Hasidic master of the 18th and 19th centuries, used to advise his disciples to carry two pieces of paper, one in each pocket. In one pocket was the phrase, "For me the world was created." In the other, "I am but dust and ashes." In the balance between these two lies the genuine status of the human being. He concludes by saying monotheism at its best asserts that although human beings are elevated above the shackles of nature, we are still subordinate to something greater than ourselves. If we are nothing but animals, then the laws of the jungle inevitably apply. But if we are all children of the same God, all kin, all convinced that there is a spark of eternity in each person, but that none of us is superhuman, then maybe we can return to being human.
Yes, yes, and yes. Oh my God, so good.
What a great! When he talks about pagans, by the way, he talks about Elon Musk, going to the moon, having 10 kids with 3 different women, and kind of going to Burning Man and all that stuff. It's like he says this is not like
that's why
hidden.
He's so happy.
Yeah, right.
This is not hidden.
Yeah, nobody's having less fun than Elon Musk. I'm always just repeatedly astonished by how different Christianity is, and repeatedly astonished by how Roman we are culturally. Pagan, I guess, is a word to use, but just the way, like the beauty thing especially, like I know part of it is just because I'm female, right? But I know just enough, right, about sort of Roman religion and the way that women were treated and the way that women were portrayed, that beauty, and even men, was just this highest achievement. And I think about, especially as the mother of a daughter, the way the world is reflecting to her. In the perfection that she's seeing. And, I feel like this isn't a thing that you guys are aware of, but there's a lot of articles right now about girls my daughter's age going to Sephora and spending $200 on skincare. They're all using anti-aging stuff. They're washing their faces every night and like putting on 4 different kinds of products, right?
People start Botox in like their 20s now.
Yeah, which is disturbing to me, but also to have like essentially a 4th grader feeling like they need to worry about their skin is deeply saddening, right? I mean, it's nothing feels sadder to me than that, when they should be having fun. I mean, Annie said to me one time, and it always stayed with me. She said, I miss when I was 4 and I didn't have to worry about what I wore.
When I was 4?
And
what?
When I was 4. Yeah. And this was like 2 years ago. She was like 7 when she said this.
Oh,
and
acceleration.
I'm not a lady. I mean, you guys are sitting here and you're so nice to not say it out loud on the podcast, but I'm literally no makeup. I have not brushed my teeth. I have not taken my antidepressant. I've got my pajamas on and my bathrobe, and I take children to school like this every morning. So it's not like Kim Kardashian is in the front seat taking her to school. Do you know what I mean? Like, she doesn't have this model of physical perfection in front of her. So I think it just is astonishing to me. And also, I just have to say, and also, what a relief that I don't know how to say it better, that Christianity is the club I'm in. Mm-hmm. Like, I just, you know what I mean? Like, I say that, and then at the same time, I think, what wonderful, beautiful news that, I could take my daughter to this crazy church event and she could run around with, like, a yellow crown on her head and yell at a fire and eat barbecue. Like, what a gift, in the midst of a world that is raging at her, that she needs to think about her beauty, that she needs to worry about what she looks like, that she needs to buy different clothes. Like, what a gift.
Yeah, I want to say, this is yet another reason not only to endorse churches as institutions, but summer camps and family camps. I want to shout out to Chip May and all my friends at Arcadia.
We got to do a family camp. Somebody was telling me the other day about a family camp they did, and I was like, we got to do a family camp.
That's what we're doing. We're just buying. It's fun. It's fun. It's setting off rockets and having little sailboat races and having just stupid games for tickets that you exchange for silly glasses. I mean, that's like what you're doing. And then you play pickleball. I mean, that's it. And that's it's worth it. It's everyone leaves being like, this is the best week I've ever had.
Yeah, together.
The one thing I'd say that I would push back on this article is that I don't think left and right actually fall into those categories, although there is a sort of a hippie pantheistic thing. I think basically everyone kind of worships money. That is
100%.
And like I'm at this university town, and it's as the headlines have been showing these past couple of weeks, like academia is deeply left of center, and everyone I know wants to study finance. So it's not like it's they're into their activism until it might threaten their job prospects. So I think that the paganism of he talks about how it used to be the accrual of wealth was for the sake of society, and the kind of, I don't know if that was ever been true, and that Americans it's turned into a purely narcissistic power trip. But I do see that aspect of kind of conquering my personal world as being a very different from the gospel of divestment and service and sacrifice that you had, at least in theory, in name, and inescapably on the cross of Christ when you had a slightly more ostensibly Christian society.
Sarah, what you said about how Roman our culture is, how pagan our culture is, I totally hear what you're saying. I do also think, though, that because I talked about this in my sermon a little bit this past Sunday, that people don't realize, and this is Tom Holland's whole thing, that how everything we value in our culture and actually want in our hearts, love, compassion, empathy, equality, humility, generosity, care for all those things which we hold up as being values. And I still do think a lot of people, even if they feel conflicted because they just want to go make a lot of money and be powerful, if you really talk to them, they would say, no, those are the things which really matter. That all comes from Jesus. Yeah. It just straight up 100% comes from Jesus.
Yeah.
And that
the outcast, the victim,
it wasn't there before.
It wasn't there before.
Yeah.
Like Christians sort of invented charity. Remember that article we read a few years ago?
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why every hospital is named for a denomination,
Right.
or something, or a saint.
That is the
or-
opposite of
Yeah.
the survival of the fittest. Like
It's the opposite, or what Emperor Julian the Apostate back in the 3rd century.
So
Like, no wonder
good.
Christianity is growing because they take care of their own poor and ours as well. Like what. So they just don't realize that like everything we value and want for ourselves and our hearts comes from Jesus. And I also think, Jesus is he's to me not just the best, if not only, proof for the existence of God. He's the only one who actually says, I am God, not I speak for God, I can tell you about God, but I am God, and then seems to back it up. But he also may be the only proof we have that God is good. Because if you take your cues for what God is like from nature or from people, you're going to end up with the Roman pagan gods who don't give a
those are the ones created in our own image.
Those are the ones, and like nature.
I've been watching Percy Jackson this week. It's amazing. I love it. But
it's gotten great reviews.
It's
I'm
really
glad you
good.
enjoyed it. But yes, it is a good. And that's an interesting. Like that would be an interesting thing to watch in light of this because it is like a really fast course into like what are the value systems.
And when gods come to Earth to have children with women, it's not a relationship. They rape them.
Yeah.
In pagan mythology, they rape the women and then they have the demigods. It's not this loving relationship, and nature is not kind.
Yeah.
Nature is like tornadoes and disease and pandemics. And like, you guys follow Instagram. What's it called? Nature is metal. Do you guys follow that Instagram page? It's like all this awful, like, lions like carrying around gazelle heads and things, just like the most brutal nature videos you can possibly imagine. Like that's nature.
Yeah.
But that's not Jesus.
Yeah.
Right.
So Jesus shows us what God is like, and it's what we want. It's so counterintuitive, but it speaks to like our deepest needs and desires. And anything else you worship is going to kill you.
Yeah.
And kill you, not just kill you, but kill the people you love.
Just like in Percy Jackson. And that and by the way, Sarah, if you watch Percy Jackson, it's like all the kids are basically the Christians, and like the adults are sort of all the sort of power hungry, inflexible gods who are kind of conniving, and the kids are the conscience, and they're all sort of like half human, anyway, it's just a fun show.
They're half pagan, half
I do
Christian.
have to say,
because I've been raised in a Christian culture.
I somehow did come across one of those videos, Sarah. I think it was a spoof video where they show what skincare was like today for fourth graders, and they have these girls with all these products and like giving all of these tutorials, and it's super intense. And then she's like, "When I was in fourth grade, this is what skincare was," and she put masking tape on her nose, and then like,
this.
And my wife, I think said like she was like, "Yeah, I used to do the masking tape thing. Like that was
where
it."
You pull your nose all the way up to look like a pig, and then you do wear some with your eyes. Yeah, that was it. And that was fun. I do want to say one more thing, and that is that the main difference between our Judeo-Christian existence and the existence that we're all experiencing culturally right now is that the culture tells us that yes you can pursue money, and yes you can pursue beauty, but it's never going to be enough. And that's the thing that our day, as you said, will kill us and the people that we love, is that it's actually never going to be enough.
It becomes disordered. As Simeon is always saying, it's like Simeon Zoll. It's like Augustine. It's not,
bad
money, power.
Just,
and in fact, certainly beauty. They're not bad. They're just disordered.
Right.
They consume everything. They're
not ultimate.
Right.
Well, let's end with a little thing about Epiphany. As the years go on and more people drift towards liturgical churches away from kind of non-liturgical ones, I think I find myself less interested in the kind of church year that I grew up with. However, Epiphany is interesting, and I think it's let's take it for what's good about it. And this is a wonderful article that appeared in Mockingbird, written by Derek Sweatman, our friend who's a pastor in Atlanta. Wonderful Derek Sweatman. And it's an article called Why the Magi Matter. The Magi being what we're conventionally known as the sort of the three kings that you meet at Christmas. So he says, in a technical sense, Epiphany refers to the manifestation of Jesus to the Gentile world, exemplified by the story of the Magi making their way to see the Christ child. And the Magi do not belong to the religious tradition of Mary and Joseph. They are outsiders, dressed in strange and foreign ideas about the universe, exotic and suspect. Yet, they hold a place in the story. They have a seat at the table. He gives us a little bit of real information here. He says the Magi were an ancient subgroup of Persian priests serving in the cabinet of whoever the ruler of the day happened to be. The book of Daniel names them as advisors to the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar, who summoned them to interpret his dream. They had access, like a press pass, to various centers of power. Their affinity with astrology has made them famous, but their use of such a practice often left them shunned and even feared. The Roman historian Tacitus, who lived in 50 to 120 AD, called the Magi absurd. The Stoic philosopher Seneca, around the same time, poked fun at the Magi's ongoing prediction of Emperor Claudius's death, pointing out that they had been calling for it every year, every month. For some, the Magi's future-telling ways were unsettling. Emperor Tiberius, who was 42 BC to 37 AD, had the Magi expelled from Rome, a move to eradicate the annoyances and fears that come with bad news. The Magi's worldview was not looked upon with great approval from within many of the ancient Jewish communities either. Later rabbinic writing warned that he who learns from a Magi is worthy of death. Magi were strange and off-centered people with weird views of how the universe worked. To see the stars as divine messengers was not something the Hebrew people involved themselves in, and yet, here we are. Sweatman goes on to say this: the Magi lived with a particular view of reality. They gazed at the world through a certain window. In the story of Christmas, God knocks on their window. It's that simple and that scandalous. This knock was more of an invitation than a correction of thinking or a call to change what they believed to be true about the world. God simply tapped on their lens, saying in their own cosmic language, I want to show you something you wouldn't expect. I imagine a group of local psychics turning up in my church building on Easter saying, we got a strange reading in the cards and it brought us here. God knocks on windows, and not just on church windows. At a time when churches can seem more like isolated clubs of like-minded affinity groups, Epiphany arrives as a disruption and a reminder of a different calling. How easily we forget that we were once Magi too. The church year is not random. Its seasons flow together. Before one trods downward on the Lenten road, we are handed the implications of the coming resurrection. We are clothed for the journey in the colors of love and invitation, of good news for all people. In a wonderfully challenging way, the Magi are a reminder to let the people in, that the gospel is for the weird, the suspicious, and the despised.
Come on, Derek.
Yeah.
That was good.
Great piece. I mean, I've never really connected that much with the kind of pastoral implications of the Magi. I certainly love the T.S. Eliot poem about the journey of the Magi, but this to me spoke to me that we are all, in some sense, Magi. God comes and knocks on our window, on our lens.
I love that. It also makes me think of Kat Von D.
Totally.
Like that was immediately because she's like, into all the heebie-jeebie stuff, and like God knocked on that lady's window. She was like, this isn't working. God knocked on her window. God probably knocked before she realized it wasn't working. And, she ended up at her neighborhood church. I mean, what a good word for us to think about. Like, clearly I'm not a New Year's gal, but headed into the new year, I would say if there's anything we could do better and think more generously about, it's that we were once Magi, and that these people who are brave enough to cross the threshold into our churches, should be treated with so much welcome and joy, because I think if we push that even further, it's like, because they bring gifts. Right?
Totally.
Because these people bring gifts, and we don't know what those gifts are, but we know that God saw fit for them to be in our community. So I love this.
I completely agree with what he's saying. I think the way I've sometimes said is that to me, the Magi shows that how much God is willing to speak our language, to come to us in a way that we can hear him, and to speak to us in a way that we can encounter him and understand him. And of course, the most powerful example of that is God speaking human in the person of Jesus. translating himself into flesh, that we could actually see what he's like and hear from his mouth and see what he does. That's the miracle of Christianity, right? We don't have to speculate about what God is like, because he has shown us what he is like, and he's shown us that he's good, and he's experienced everything that we experienced and entered into our humanity. So it is amazing the lengths that the God of the universe goes to get in touch with each and every one of us. Like, I think about all the different conversion experiences, like my wife's conversion experience, how God just spoke to her in a way that she needed to be spoken to. And that was true for me as well. And why would, what kind of God does that? Like, who the hell am I?
Yeah. Right. Also, have more rules, God. Do you know what I mean? Get more rules.
Make us work harder, God.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to do something to make our way to you? And he's like, no, just do your Nancy Reagan thing, and I'll find you.
But he doesn't come and correct them first of all, or that's like
right.
And I do.
No.
John Zoll said, we did a Christmas episode of the Brother Zoll, and he always said God had one chance to make a first impression, and he comes as a baby. That's a
totally.
That's and who doesn't like a baby? Or I guess when they're screaming, but maybe you don't like them. But
King Herod, not crazy about babies.
Do have an inexorable sort of pull to babies, and I sometimes when you really drill down in the Christmas story, you get you do hear talk of the shepherds being very uncouth, very rough characters, smelly outcasts, but the Magi were just as strange. But they happen to be sort of people of privilege. They were in the halls of power, and yet equally
the rich and the poor, the Jews and the Gentiles.
They shouldn't really be there either. And it's this Christmas story that it's back to the holdovers. It's the despised. It's the ones who really shouldn't be there that seem to crowd around, and it's a beautiful thing.
Dave, that's so good. It's the ones who shouldn't be there that really crowd around.
It's like church every Sunday.
Good.
Well, I think we can stop there, because that is a hopeful word in the middle of New Year's that are the same as old years. Or
for those of you who stuck with us after my initial commentary, thank
you. Well, Happy New Year to everyone, and Happy New Year, especially the two of you again. And we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
All right. Bye, guys.
See you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Remember, you can find us on the web at www.mbird.com. And we'd always love to hear from you at info@mbird.com. Audio production for the Mockingcast is provided by TJ Hester. And if you like what you've heard, please drop over to iTunes and leave us a rating or review. Until next time.
Praise the Lord.